Big Z Reviews. Hi, my name is Brandon Zarzyczny, but you can call me Big Z, and today I'm doing a book review for the new urban fantasy novel, A Shot of Gin by Phoebe Wagner. Now, before I get into the book, I will say as a little bit of a disclaimer, I am the cousin-in-law of Phoebe. I grew up going to my cousin Andy in his parents' house. They have a big farm with a bunch of land in northern Pennsylvania, and I was part of the wedding party for Phoebe and Andy. Although at the time I was over 300 pounds heavier than I am now, so I was worried that I probably ruined the group photo shoots because I was in an ill-fitting suit and it was in the middle of summer, so I was a sweaty mess. Probably looked like a beast. But I say that they are really good people, and growing up, they're the Dinters, but they're like the home away from home, where I'm very much a chubby boy, a city boy that go into the weekend up to the Dinters, and I would have to they would put you to work if you're hanging out there. They would put you to work. You'd help if they're doing hay. You'd help bale hay. You'd help feed the cows, help feed the chickens. It might go spotlighting, seeing how the deer are doing in the off season, and you go I would almost always would have come home with some sort of wound from my having fun, walking in the woods, kicking down dead trees, or I don't know, the one and only time I rode a four-wheeler where I got on it and it's at the top of a hill, and I didn't know how to brake it. I didn't know how to hit the brakes because it was different from a bicycle. And I tried to slide going down the hill with my heels in the gravel, and then crash the ATV, the four-wheeler, into the creek. And I know my Uncle Bernie had to get the tractor out to pull the four-wheeler out of the creek. But it was kind of funny that this is an urban fantasy novel, and Phoebe, she married into a family of tree surgeons. So I feel like if there is a job that would lend itself to hiding some otherness in an urban fantasy world, it would be tree surgeons. Be like druids or green witches or wizards or some sort of fae. Because you're working with nature every day. And this is not an ad, but I will say, if you're in north central Pennsylvania and you need any sort of tree services, contact Dinter and Dinter Tree Surgeons. And now I will say that I pre-ordered this book, and that I didn't get it for free, and I didn't no one knows I'm doing this review. And if I didn't like the book, I just wouldn't talk about it. So I'm being as unbiased as I can as a book reviewer as I talk about Phoebe Wagner's debut novel. And she met my cousin go at college. They're both in the English department. They're in both English majors. And I know it's kind of interesting because back in the day when my cousin Andy, he was trying to get into reading, and I actually put together a big bag full of the first books of all of my favorite series, and I gave them to him.
The first book in the series is The Game of Thrones, which I have a very old and worn copy of this book. This book was given to me from my cousin Brandon, probably about 4 or 5 years ago, maybe.
So I thought I always felt that I helped him along in the love of reading, and that but that's so cool that they met, in the English department, and they both graduated, they went to continue on her postgraduate work. I think she went to Iowa State, and then she went to the University of Nevada in Reno, and the University of Reno in Nevada, whatever. But that's what, and this is kind of like she wrote this book, like the manuscript for it, while she was, doing her postgraduate work and teaching, and just exploring all of the different areas in Reno. And this is kind of like, along with being an urban fantasy novel, this is a love letter to Reno, Nevada. And I think, I don't really, when I think of Reno, I think of desert. But I found out from this book and from like some pictures she's posted online, I think of like what kind of different areas it can offer. But I know that they love to go camping and go hiking. I know that they still do it here now, back when they're back in Pennsylvania. And I think it's probably a little bit different. Like, there's definitely no deserts in Pennsylvania, but there is still, like, it's interesting to know, like, that they have different sort of like the lakes and forest, and it's like, if you go north, I think, that there's not just the desert. And so the setup for this book is that our main character is Juniper, or Jin Kane, and she thought she was a normal human girl, but then, like, when she's like, I'm going to college, like, she is invited to a Halloween party at the Saints Club in Reno, and she goes there and drunkenly signs some contract, not really reading what it's about, and then she doesn't realize that she's signed away her will to be a blood bag for the vampire party that they're having at the club, because like all of the clubs are owned by vampires, and that but of course they found when they try to drink her blood, the vampires find out that they can't. It makes her vomit. They can't drink her blood, and so like, what is she? And then this is the book starts 2 years after that initial event where she learned about the magical dark underworld that exists in this world. That this is a world with vampires and and witches and wizards and fae, and all of the the urban fantasy tropes. This is that world, and it's a really like interesting way to dive into it. With a woman that finds out that she's not human, and she's growing into her powers. And as that, she's the owner of the All Saints Casino, is a cowboy turned vampire during the Nevada Silver Rush, like 200 years ago, named Colton, and he is training her to like try to learn her powers and maybe send her up to be the next head of security at the All Saints Casino, and also maybe helping him strengthen his power against the other Las Vegas vampires that may not like him growing in power. But like that, it's kind of cool the way they do the vampires, is that it seems like the older they get, the weaker they get physically, but the stronger they get mentally. Like, and he's getting new powers as he's like now turning 200 years old. And then there's also like a little bit of a love triangle with Juniper and Clayton and Clarice, which is the daughter of the head of the Las Vegas vampires. That's always kind of aggressively flirting with her, and she wants to ignore it, but like sometimes can't. And like, and so there's the interesting that dynamic there. And she has other friends that, like, she has like a changeling fae friend, and like some other like human friends at the bar. And this is kind of like that the Saints Casino has become her home, and that she wants to defend it. And at the start of the book, she doesn't like to work on Halloween because that's when, like, she still has PTSD from being bitten by a vampire, finding out that she's not human, and all this otherworldness of her world. But this time Colton makes her work Halloween, and there's also like a big vampire meeting that she is an aspect of the discussion. But like before that can happen, there's an irradiated zombie makes its way into the club, and like attacks her friend, and then attacks her, and like when it bites her wrist, her blood dissolves it like acid. And I kind of really like how like in this world like zombies are extinct essentially, so they're everyone's kind of freaking out that like zombies are coming back. But this time, like I love that the descriptions of them, they're kind of really interesting, and then they kind of bring in this whole thing where like about Nevada, that is very like the whole idea of the nuclear project and all the testing they did, and that like it created something. I love that the idea of that if you're in like an urban fantasy world where magic and gods are real, what would happen when human beings use science to crack the atom and to make nuclear weapons? Like, that was first just the destruction that it causes, but also like the whole world for decades were fearing a nuclear winter, like a mutually assured destruction, with Russia and America, like if they fired nukes at each other. That could create a new god, perhaps. And maybe it could be a lot of interesting stuff there. And I really like that these zombies, like how Phoebe describes them, like they're irradiated, like they look like Hiroshima or Chernobyl, like the after effects of the radiation sickness. But then mixed with that, it's like a Frankenstein monster where like desert parts, like desert animal parts, have been like sewed onto them to complete the bodies. So like you might even have like a zombie might have two coyote heads on his hands, or like it's the writing is really great. I really love the writing of all the descriptions of all these zombies, and they're really kind of like horrifying and disgusting, and like it's really really nice to visualize. Like it really, how she wrote, it really created an interesting picture. Like I kind of like that zombies are kind of really played out, but this is a really different take on them, and that they're not like too much of the focus, but whenever they come up it's always enjoyable, especially because like at one point she gets this like brand with a jackalope on it, and that's like like the weapon that she like picks that calls out to her, and like she can like it glows red hot when she holds it. So it's like it's a cool weapon, and like and Juniper Jin, she's a cool character. She is like a complex character where she's trying to figure herself out in this world of otherness and find her way in it, but that she is a new power coming up, and that everyone's kind of like not sure where she belongs in this world because that they're not ready for her, or not, and that like she has to, when the Las Vegas vampires, they want to take control of her, but Colton wants to keep her to himself, as maybe for good or maybe for bad. So that there's the whole thing that they escape and down to the desert and shenanigans ensue. And that's like, the like Phoebe's like love letter to Nevada. Like she's out there hunting for whatever might be causing these zombies to come, what might be creating them. There's also other times she goes, like she travels all around Reno, like throughout the book, and like it's always interesting. And then you never know, like there's a bunch of like little twists and turns where you never know like who might be the good guys and who are the bad guys, and there's a lot of aspects of like she doesn't know who she can trust, and it's a joy to read. I really like it. This is like this is her first debut book, like it's her first novel that she's published. I know she's written some other short stories, and she's edited and published collections, mostly in solar punk. And she has a novella too. I know novella I haven't gotten around to reading. I have it on my bookshelf of all the books I want to read. But like I always love that, like along with like this is like an urban fantasy novel, but a lot of her other stuff is called like solar punk, and I found this is a really interesting idea where like so much of the futuristic novels are all like dystopian, but like and it's all about like how the future is shit and how it sucks. But I kind of love the idea of solar punk, is where like you like if you're a millennial, you're a Gen Z, you know that if you don't die young, you're gonna see some weird weather in the near future. Like there's already a lot of weird stuff going on now, but in the next couple decades, there's gonna be a lot of changes to our world. But I love that like solar punk, the way to look at it is that like people, humans finding a way to survive and thrive in a changing world, and that like this is I know I really appreciate her take on urban fantasy too. I always like urban fantasy is a really fun genre to get into. Like it's always like when you find a good urban fantasy book, it's very readable. It's kind of like it's like a subgenre of a portal fantasy. Because like instead of like you're not going into a portal to another magical world, you're finding out that there's a magical world hiding under our own world, and it's a great like way to jump into a fantasy setting. But then of course like you can have still her be modern day and have like her having her have modern day sensibilities. She's definitely a modern woman. She's written as like she's a very Jin is a really interesting character, and I liked her a lot. I'm not sure if she is planned on doing more in here, but she could definitely do a sequel if she wanted to, and I would definitely read it if she did. Like it's definitely more you could delve into her powers and her like what happened in the book, like what would be the consequences of everything that happened. There's a lot of interesting ways that you could go, and like I would definitely recommend it. This is like it's a it's a small book, so I mean, but it is available like on Amazon and Kindle and physical books. Like, and I really I hope that she does well, but she's they're great people, and she's a really interesting author that had a really enjoyable debut novel. Like there's a lot of really good stuff in here. It's like definitely a fun read. It's like urban fantasy with a little bit of elevated writing. It's overall I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I would recommend it. Probably give it like a 9 out of 10. But thanks for watching. If you want to see more of me, you can subscribe down below. Thanks.